Don't know what happened. All right, we're on.
Okay.
You were hacked by the Russians.
Eh?
You were hacked by the Russians.
Yes, maybe.
Kuf Lamed Daled, 134. Lo shochat me'erev Shabbos. If you didn't grind the cumin from erev Shabbos, you can chew it in a different format. Ton Rabbanon, Dvarim she'en oisin lamela b'Shabbos, oisin lo b'yontiv. There are certain things that we can't do for Mila on Shabbos, but you can do on Yontiv. For example, shorcha kin lakamo. You can soak the cumin because cumin can be used for food. The torfin lo yain v'shemen, and you can mix yain v'shemen together. Why could you do it on Yontif? Because oichel nefesh is permitted. Yain v'shemen chazik nami b'Shabbos l'chola. Yain and shemen can be used for a chola on Shabbos. Why should that be a unique thing about Yontif? The Tanya ain't torfin yain v'shemen l'chola b'Shabbos. Amar shemen lozer mishum Rab Meir af torfin yain v'shemen. Rab Meir held you can mix yain v'shemen in a strong way. Amar shemen ben Elazar pamachas chash Rab Meir b'meyav. Rab Meir had a stomach ache. Uvikashnu litrofel yain v'shemen. We want to mix up yain v'shemen like with a mixer. V'lo yinachli didn't allow us. Omarnu lo dvarecha yibatlu b'chayecha. I understand you're going against your own psak. Omar lanu afal pi shani oimer kach. Even though my shita is to be lenient, v'chaveroi oimer kach, but my colleagues are stringent. I didn't go against what my colleagues posket. So who knew the machmer nafshe? So Reb Meir might have had a personal desire to be machmer himself. Aval kula mashari, but Reb Meir permitted for everybody. So hasam lo boy leka. You didn't need a very, very, very strenuous mixing. So for a wound, for a mila boy leka, it needs to be strenuously mixed. So don't mix it strenuously. So the Gemara says, that's why the Mishnah said you don't mix them together. You apply it separately because using it for Mila required a more strenuous mixing, which would not be permitted on Shabbos, but would be permitted on Yom Tov. Ton Rabbanon, ein mesanin es achad v'masanes shelo. There was some kind of mustard filter, I guess, to filter out the mustard seeds. So on Yontif, you can't do that either. And they would sort of sweeten the mustard by burying it in coals. Why does it say that noistin beitza b'masanen shel chardal? You can put an egg through a mustard filter. That doesn't look like boirer. But when you mix mustard seed and you try to get the mustard seeds out, you can't sweeten it with coals. Another Bryce that says you can. If it's some kind of iron coal, so that's permitted. If it's made out of wood, which can create a real coal, that would be prohibited. How come you can roast meat on Yontif over coals? You can't do it from Erev Yontif because it won't be as fresh. But by the coal, by the mustard after, you can do it from Erev Shabbos, it will taste just as good. Can you make cheese on Yontif? He says you can't. Why are you allowed to knead dough on Yontif? That also is the same action. Buy bread. If you did it from Erev Yontif, it doesn't taste as good as if when you do it on Yontif. But cheese, If you make cheese from the day before, you can do it. It still tastes good. The Nardoin said that cheese made on the same day is the best. This is what they meant. But that even cheese made that day is good, but everyone knows that cheese made from the day before even tastes better. Then the Gemara says, you cannot make a special bandage for the foreskin after Mila. Amr Abaya, Amr Li Aim. Abaya had like a nanny, and many statements are made in the name of this nanny, that have medicinal benefit. That high cholak the yanuka, this bandage, lefani lesitri liloy, he tells you how to do it. You put it on top, from the top side, and the threads on the bottom. Dilma midbik gardimine, because we're concerned that the threads will stick to the wound. But also they krushuvcha. Then when you pull off the thing, it'll damage the penis and make it a krushuvcha, which is also to lovely pakal. It's very interesting. When I dress a circumcision, I use Vaseline gauze. We don't use regular gauze because regular gauze has also like these threads, and it gets stuck, and it's painful when you take it off. It dries up. So we put Vaseline gauze directly on the incision, so it's easy to take off the bandage after circumcision. Ema de Abaya, this nanny of Abaya, Avdi Kista Tolapalga. She would make some kind of pocket for this bandage for the foreskin. Amra by Hayanuka de Leslie Chaluk. If you don't have this special made garment, this bandage, Lysi Belissa de Isle Sifsa. You bring some garment that's got wool. The lichreche l'sifsa l'sasoy. You fold the bottom hem and fold it upwards. I flay liloy. Amra by Amra li aim. I anuka de lo yadim mafake. This is children that are born with something called imperforate anus, where the rectum is not opened up. It's a medical issue. I wrote a chapter in Campbell's Urology when I was a resident on this issue, imperforate anus, because it's associated with a lot of urological abnormalities. So they knew it at the time of Chazal. So they say l'shayfe mishcha, you should put like oil on that area. Take them out in the sun, and vehecha de zig lekare, you would see like a dimple there. You would take a sharp rock and make an incision with the rock like a cross, and that would open it up. You shouldn't use metal, mishum dezor, if it causes inflammation. If you have a child, I think it means he doesn't suckle well. He doesn't nurse well. Maker de carpume. It's because his mouth is cold. Bring a hot coal close to the mouth of the child. It'll warm up his mouth. The chaim purim, and that will stimulate him to nurse. Amr Abai Amr Li'em Hayanuka de lo Menashtia. He's not urinating well. Linfache ben nafasa umenashtia. Rashi says no. He's not breathing well. So pick them up like in some kind of sieve, some kind of device that was used to separate things. Also, he does not breathing well. Lysu slita de ime, bring like the placenta. Velisrke ilavoy umave. Put it on top of him, and that'll help him breathe. If he's too small, he's not eating well. Lysul silta, again, you bring the placenta. Velisrke ilavoy mikuta leuma. Put it, I guess there's a small side of the placenta and a big side. So bring it from the small to the large. Ve olem, if the child is too big, me'ulma lekutna, do it vice versa. If the child is too red, which means that katilo ivli beidama, the blood hasn't, is still between his skin and his flesh. Litrachule ad the ivli beidama of limit. Don't circumcise him. You have to wait until the color of the skin changes. Similarly, the yarek, if it's yellow, katilo nafel beidame, that means he didn't have enough blood. Lisrach, you have to also wait ad nafel beidam until he's not yellow. V'limelu. Titania Rav Nosson Pamachas alachti lekrochei hayam. I was visiting the islands. Ubas ish achas lefan. They brought a woman shemola ben arishon umeis sheni v'meis, that they had circumcised the first two sons, and they had died. And shlishi aviatu lefanai, and they brought me the third one. Re'isiv shu adam, and he said, I saw that the child was red. Amarti lo amti lo achiv lo bodamo, you should wait until the blood gets absorbed. And tina lo, they waited achniv lo bodamo. Malo sovachai, and they did the milah, and the child survived. By according also nosna bavli al shmi, they called him nosna bavli. Shufam achas alachti l'mdinas kapotkia, which is somewhere in Turkey. They brought a woman whose first two children had died during Milah. Shlishi Aviyasa Lafana, they brought the third. Re'isivshu Yaruk, I saw that he was yellow. Itzasti Bo. Re'isibo Dambris, I saw that there wasn't any blood if we had done the circumcision. I said, wait, Amtini Lo Achiipo Bodamo. Wait until the blood is circulating better. Then they waited and they circumcised him and he lived. And they called him Nosna Babli, in the name of the Rav, who paskin that they could do the milah and it'd be safe. Now we're on Kufla Medal Ramad Beis. Marchitzines HaKotten, the halacha at the time of Chazal was they would wash the child before the milah and after the milah, and it was considered a sakana nefashos. Therefore, you could heat up the water even on Shabbos. But then it says you should only sprinkle water with your hand. That seems to be going against what the Mishnah says of a loba kli. So the Gemara will have to resolve that. That even if the third day of the milah was Shabbos, you could still heat up water. When Shimon and Levi tricked the people of Shechem, they told them to do milah, they descended upon them on the third day when they were in the great pain. Safek, if we're not sure whether the child, Chazal understood that a child could be born after a 7-month pregnancy and after a 9-month pregnancy, but they didn't think that a fetus could survive an 8-month pregnancy. A child born in the 8th month is considered like a stone, and his milah is not doicha Shabbos. So if he's a Safek 8-month pregnancy, or he's an androgynous is a hermaphrodite. where if you look at the genitalia, it looks like they have a penis and a vagina. That's the criteria for androgynous in Chazal. It's not the medical criteria. I've been through this before. Those of you who've been in the Shir before, there is something called female pseudohermaphroditism. That's the most common type of ambiguous genitalia or double genitalia. These are normal females, XX, but they're born with an adrenal gland malfunction of one of their enzymes. So there's very high levels of testosterone. And therefore, the clitoris undergoes clitoromegaly. It enlarges. But they have a regular vagina. So in the nursery, you look at it, it looks like they've got a penis, and it looks like they got a vagina. So that's a classic androgynous. Those women are very well treated. You got to do surgery on the clitoris. It's called a clitoroplasty. You shrink, you make it normal, and you leave everything else alone. They've got normal internal genitalia. You give them hormone treatments so that it drops the testosterone, and they can be normal women and have normal children and everything like that. Now, there are other forms of, I would say, intersex. For example, most classic is testicular feminization, where these are XY. If you look at their chromosomes, they're male. But you look at their genitalia, they're female. And in fact, this doesn't present in the nursery. This presents as a 15, 16-year-old girl who comes in and has never had a period. And then they do an ultrasound and they see testicles in the pelvis. There's no uterus. When you examine them, they look like a normal female in terms of their genitalia. And the defect is that they make testosterone, but the tissues are not receptive to it. And therefore, the fetus remains female. Even though there's testicles, the vagina doesn't fuse, the testicles don't descend. That normally things happen with testosterone. There is testosterone, it's just the tissue receptor doesn't recognize the testosterone. So and in fact, the testosterone goes to very high levels and it's metabolized to estrogen, and it causes these women to be very voluptuous. And many of the famous actresses, some even say that Marilyn Monroe was a testicular feminization person. You don't know that for sure, and there's other actresses that have been known as testicular feminization, but that's not an androgynous. It's an androgynous from the concept that they've got a chromosome that's XY, but they're genitalia, so this means it's sort of like a double type of sexuality, but that's not how Chazal understood androgynous. Androgynous was understood that if you examine them, they have both genitalia. And that only fits what I've described, the female pseudohermaphroditism. Now, so if a child is born and it's an androgynous, ein mechal alav Shabbos. We don't know. Maybe it's a male, maybe it's a female. So therefore, you do the milah not on the Shabbos. However, Rabbi Yehuda matter androgynous. There's machlokes tanoim regarding this issue of androgynous. So the Gemara says, "V'hai amit reisha marchitzin." In the beginning of the Mishnah, it says you're allowed to give the child a bath. Then you say you can only sprinkle it with your hand. So Rabbi Yehuda v'Rabbi Ravud Amar Tavar Keitzad Tani. The Mishnah is in a format of how, meaning marchitzin is a cotton bein l'fnei milah bein lachar milah. You can wash the child. Keitzad, how? Mizalfan la'biyad of a lobakli. You can sprinkle the water. You have to do it in some kind of shimon. Amar Rava doesn't accept it. But marchitzin means give him a bath. El Amar Rava, so Rava explains the Mishnah like this. You can give the child a bath, whether it's before the meal and the after the meal. Bayoma Rishon Kedarko. On the first day, like a regular bath. Bayoma Shli, Shechalios B'Shabbos. If it's the third day, then you got to use a shimon. No. The regular way. Shenemar Vayi Bayom Hashlishi B'Yosam Klavi. Tanya Kavase de Rava. There's a brisa to support the way Rava interpreted our Mishnah. You can give the child a bath both before and after Mila, B'yom Rishon Kedarko, the normal way, B'yom Hashlishi, on the third day, Shechalios B'Shabbos, that falls on Shabbos, B'Zaf B'Yad. Then you have to do it as Shinui. But Elazar ben Azariah, says Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah, Afal Pishain Raya, L'Dover Zecher L'Dover. I'll bring you a pasuk. Shneamar, Vayi B'Yom Hashlishi B'Yosam Kovi. Ukshein Mizalfin, when they sprinkle, Ein Mizalfin Lo B'Kos Lo B'Ka'ara, don't use a cup or a plate, Lo B'Kli El B'Yad, which seems to be Ason Sanakama, which is back to the Tanakama. Now, my Afal Pishain Raya L'Dover Zecher. Why did you have to bring a pasuk? So Mishum de Gadol Lo Salik Bisraya. Now, if you do a circumcision on an adult, so it doesn't heal very well. It's not like a 8-day-old child. And by the Shem, they were adults. So that's why there's no riot from there on an 8-day-old child. Because over there, maybe they were in pain at the third day because it doesn't heal very well. Cotton, maybe Salik Beit Bisrahaya. Maybe by an 8-day-old, by the third day, it's completely healed. And we don't have to, there is no din of the third day for sure. Hawud also coming to Rava. Person came to Rava. He passed in the way he did that you can give a bath on the first day, on the third day, only biyad. Ichlish Rava, but Rava got sick. Omar Ana Badi Tagima de Savilamali. Maybe it's because he thought he got sick because he didn't paskin correctly. Mimai. Because Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah said you're allowed to give a full bath on day 3. So the Gemara analyzed. If we understand our mission, the Tanakama says you can only sprinkle, and that's why Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah responded and said, no, you don't just sprinkle, but you give a full bath. Then I understand. That the Tanakama also allowed you to give a full bath on the first day, and then only sprinkle on the third day. So then, what does it mean? Hi, Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah, Omer Marchitzin. It should say Af Marchitzin B'Boile. So that's why Rava was concerned that maybe he didn't paskin correct. However, Kiyos Rav Dimi, Omer Rabbi Elazar, Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah. The halach is like Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah. Says the Shulchan Aruch, during the times of the Gemara, they were concerned to give a dog says the Shulchan Aruch, in our generation, we don't do any of this washing. If you want to give the child a bath on Shabbos, the day of the Milah, you can't use hot water because it's not our minhag today. The Ashkenazim do give a bath, but not with hot water. But if they see that you need to do says the Ramah, that you, of course, if you think it's a sakana, you can heat up water. Back to the Gemara. Havuba Marava. They analyzed the following case of Marava. Achatas kol gufo, achatas mila. That which we talked about washing, is it the whole body or just the area of the mila? Rabbanon, Rabbi Yaakov Shmei Mistav, achatas kol gufo. We're talking about the whole body. The Isag that achatas mila, it can't be just the mila. Migor mecham al gabi maka. It's not any worse than pouring hot water on a wound, which you can do on any Shabbos. So Amar Rav Moyin Chamin V'Shemim Al Gabi Maka B'Shabbos. It's not considered a refuah, right? Refuah they aser, but you are allowed to put hot water or oil on a Maka on Shabbos. It's not a problem. So if you could do that, after a Mila is no worse than any wound. So it must be when they talk about Archatza, they're talking about the whole body. Maski, Rav Yosef, V'lo shaylach ben chamin shechamu b'Shabbos l'chamin shechamu me'erev Shabbos. This, what they're talking about, is that they heated up water on Friday. And then there's only a chashash that maybe it's the Issa Refuah. But you're not allowed to heat up hot water on Shabbos for a wound. That's Chilul Shabbos. Unless it's a sakana. Here we're not talking about sakana. So Master Avdimi, why do you think that this machlokas has to do with whether you can heat up water on Shabbos? Maybe the machlokas is even with water heated up Erev Shabbos. And it's still a machlokas. And that maybe those that us are doing it as a gzeira, maybe you'll come to do it, or because it's refuah. Amra Abaya Anaba Aidi Shani Lay. I wanted to be mitaretz the kodem b'shayin le Rav Yosef, but Rav Yosef jumped me and explained like this: Nesha sakana hulo. That means the only time we're allowed to heat up water on Shabbos if it's a sakana. But if it's not a sakana, you're not allowed to heat up water. We're talking about water that was heated up Erev Shabbos. Itmar Nami, there's a brisa to support what we just said. Kiyos Rav Amar Ravo, Amar Rav Lazar, Amar La Amar Ravo, Amar Rav Yechon, Allah, Rav Lazar ben Azariah. Bein b'chamin shuchum b'Shabbos, bein b'chamin shuchum b'Erev Shabbos. You can wash the child with water heated up on Shabbos or Erev Shabbos. Bein achotis kol gufo, bein achotis mila, whether it's the body or the mila, and they should sakana hilo because it's considered a sakana. Gufa. So let's learn something in detail, that which we mentioned in passing. Amar Rav, ein moinin chamin v'shemen me'al gabi makah b'Shabbos. We don't prevent people from putting hot water or oil on their wound on Shabbos. Shmuel says no. You can't put it directly on the wound. Noisen chutz lamakah. You put it on the skin above it, the choice is for you at the muck, and then it runs down. Meisvei, I'll ask you a kasha. Ein noisen shem v'chaim al gabi moch litin al gabi makah b'Shabbos. You can't put shemen or hot water on top of a bandage to place on top of the makkah, even though it seems to be indirect, like Shmuel advised. So the Gemara says, no, over there we don't allow it because of mishum schita. If you put it on the bandage, you might come to squeeze it out. But that's no raya against putting it on the flesh and it runs down. Toshma, come in here and prove.
Ernie, obviously it's talking about a choyle she'ein bo sakona that you put
Correct.
on.
Correct. Absolutely.
Otherwise you would never shaila here. So
absolutely. We're talking about like you have a scrape, a scab. We're not talking about sakana. But remember, there's a lot of things that you can do for a chola she'ein bo sakana. So the Gemara, we learn all of these dinim. We will read the Shulchan Aruch shortly about that issue. You have to know what you can do for a chola she'ein bo sakana too. Now, a chola she'ein bo sakana is also divided into, if it's a chola that makes you fall into your bed, like if you have a flu, you're really, you might have a mild headache. That's a chola she'ein bo sakana. You might have a flu. It's also chola she'ein bo sakana, but that's called a chola agufo. So we'll see. There's different dinim in terms of medicines that you can use on Shabbos, even though you're in the category of chola she'ein bo sakana. There's gradations in that as well. So the Gemara says, again, we're talking about a chola. The problem there is also squeezing out the bandage. You may not put hot water or shemen on top of a makbah Shabbos. Of course, if it was some kind of sakana in the fasha, so you were allowed to. But we're talking about chola she'ein bo sakana. Avonos and chutz lamakah, you're allowed to put it on top of the wound, but shows it's for your lamakah and it drips down. Ton rabbanon. Nois lagabi amaka moch yavesh usfog yavesh. You can place the hot water or the oil on a very dry bandage. Avalok gemi yovesh v'lo ksisin yoveshim, but not on a gemi. It's like rubber, some kind of material, nylon, right? And not on a shmata, that's ktitin. So the Gemara says, what do you mean? Kasha ktitin aktitin. First you said you could put it on a moch yovesh. How is that different from ktitin? Like kasha abachadite about tiki. If it's a new shmata, so that has healing potential and that prohibit. But an old shmata you can use because it doesn't heal. Doesn't help very much. So we see from here that shmatas, if they're new, have a refuah process property. Shulchan Aruch says, "Ein noagin, ein noisin shemen v'chamin, mix oil and water, oil and hot water, muravin al gabi hamakel, and noisin mechutz l'makkah." We paskin like Shmuel, that you can't put it directly on the makkah. Mutar lasim chatichot arig chadashot al gabi. You're allowed to put new shmatas on a wound. Kivin she'ena merapois, they don't heal. It just protects elamiginos alamokam apatzua. Aval ein samin mochin yeshem, but not old ones. Sheyesh b'hem k'dei l'rapeh, they heal. V'imfar yishtamshu b'hem, but if they've been used already, mutter.
I don't understand the Gemara. If it's an old thing, it's been used. So therefore, why do you say that it's an old thing you can't use? And
that's the Shulchan Aruch Paskin's completely opposite from the Gemara. Look at Rashi. Chadatim, chadoshim, shelo yu agabi makkah ma'olam masu. A new shmata that have never been on a makkah ever before work. Atiki, old ones, loy masu. So, and I'm reading the Shulchan, it says like this. The Shulchan Aruch says, you cannot put shmatas that have been used before on the makkah. Sheyesh b'hem k'dei l'rapeh. V'imfar yishtamshu b'hem mutter. But if they've been used before, you're allowed. So that's what it means by used. Means the atiki means something that's been used before. So if they've been used before, they lose their medicinal properties, and that's why you can't use them, because the chachamim were goyzer on refuah on Shabbos.
No, so yeah. So he
what it means, like a used one. It's a used one. A used one doesn't have medicinal properties.
Okay, so it says, contrary to Rashi's explanation, what you said, that appears in the Gemara, it's permitted to wrap a wound with swatches of new fabric on Shabbos, since they do not heal but only protect the wound. However, old rags may not be used because they have medical effect. If they have already been used to dress a wound, it is permitted to reuse them because
you just read a verbatim English translation,
right, of what you said.
Of the Shulchan Aruch, exactly.
Right.
Exactly. And it fits the Gemara that we learned. So
Rambam Paskin's like that. Okay.
Yeah. So tomorrow night we will learn at 9:15 p.m. Now I'm just questioning. Is anybody? Can we Sunday morning, 7:00 in the morning? Is that too early?
Yeah.
Because the alternative would have to do it like Sunday night, either before the Navi Shir or after the Navi Shir.
We can't Sunday night before the Navi Shir. I think Peter has something planned.
Yeah.
Oh right,
the
Kahoot. Okay,
6:30.
So we'll have to do it after the Navi Shir, unless we do it at 7 in the morning.
We'll do it after the Navi Shir, 7 in the morning.
Okay. Fine, we'll do it after the Navi Shir.
Yeah, I'm coming back from Pebble Beach early Sunday.
Okay.
Good Shabbos.
Good Shabbos, everybody.
Shabbos.
Yaakov, good Shabbos.
Yeah.
Shabbos,
Hi,
Shabbos.
How are you? How's your
Baruch Hashem, doing well. Doing well. Look who it is. Ayel, let's say hi.
I see. She's a big Talmidah Chachama.
I know
she. Grandpa.
Yeah, she. The first thing I was on mute, but the first thing she said, "Oh, Grandpa's." She heard it. She heard Grandpa's voice. It's very cute. Yeah, let's say hi. Hi. Yeah.
Cute. Okay.
Grandpa, she was
Okay, guys. Shabbat
okay.
shalom.
Happy
Yaakov.
Shabbat.
Shabbat shalom. Bye.
Shabbat shalom. Shabbat shalom. Hi, Mario. Shabbat shalom.